I apologize for my daughter's absence. She's a medical student and was quite busy with her studies on the day of the pre-wedding meeting between our families. This left an empty seat at the table reserved for the groom's family. Noticing my concerned gaze, my in-laws apologized together, visibly embarrassed. Though I had urged her to attend, she didn't make it. My husband Daniel grumbled about his sister and respectfully lowered his head to my family. We reassured them it was all right, and they seemed visibly relieved. My mother-in-law expressed a desire for us to get along with their daughter, and I agreed wholeheartedly. At the time, I didn't overthink the situation as my in-laws and husband had left me with a good impression. I naturally expected my sister-in-law to be the same. My name is Sarah, and I am 33 years old. I recently married my husband 2 months ago, and we plan to hold our wedding ceremony next year around the time of the family meeting. My mother fell ill and was hospitalized, so we decided to postpone the ceremony until she fully recovered. My mother had always dreamed of seeing me as a bride, so we decided to enjoy our time as a newly married couple for now, with me focusing on being a full-time housewife. Before I got married, I worked as a doctor at a hospital. However, the demands of the job took a toll on my mental and physical health, affecting my work and daily life. Though I wanted to leave immediately, I couldn't due to my commitment to my patients. With the support of those around me, I eventually resigned from the hospital. Perhaps a large hospital wasn't the right fit for me. While I was wrestling with feelings of inadequacy and self-blame, I met my husband. After dating for some time, we got married. My husband, who grew up in a modest family, was surprised to learn about my previous career as a doctor, but he saw me for who I was, refraining from focusing on my past profession. He promised to make me smile every day and worked hard to keep his word. I devote myself to cooking and housework to make my husband's life as easy as possible. His presence has been essential to my happiness and recovery. My health has steadily improved, so I'm thinking about returning to work and using my medical license again. Despite our happy life, there remains one concern: my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law, whom I haven't met yet, is a busy medical student. According to my in-laws, we were supposed to meet her at the family gathering, but she couldn't attend due to her studies. She excelled in her exams on her first try, indicating her remarkable talent. My husband and I got married a few months after the family meeting, so we missed the chance to meet her. I hope we will have the opportunity to get to know her someday. One day, while my husband and I were out shopping in town, enjoying ourselves browsing furniture and matching tableware, we decided to take a break. Just then, we heard a woman's voice exclaim, "Hey, isn't that Daniel?" My husband turned around, and I followed his gaze to see a striking young woman in a low-cut dress, high heels, and strong perfume. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" my husband asked. The woman, whom he called Lisa, stared at me, making me feel slightly uneasy. My husband introduced her to me. "Sarah, this is your first time meeting her, right? This is my sister, Lisa." "Oh, so you're Lisa. Nice to meet you." "I'm Sarah," I said politely, bowing my head. Though she wasn't what I had imagined, I tried not to judge her by her appearance. As I reflected on this, my sister-in-law laughed mockingly. "All right, you're already married, so this is my sister-in-law. My brother is handsome and has a great income, but he married such a plain older woman. It's a mystery," she said with blatant rudeness. Her remarks during our first meeting took me by surprise. It's true that my husband is 4 years younger than me, attractive, and earns a higher than average income working for a major pharmaceutical company. I can understand how someone who doesn't know us might think we're an odd match, but I was taken aback by her nerve in saying it directly to my face. As I realized, my sister-in-law and I might not get along. My husband stepped forward to defend me and scolded her. "Hey, that's incredibly rude. You should grieve her properly. You didn't even bother to show up for the family introduction because you put your own convenience first." She responded with a dismissive laugh. I had a group date that day. I was shocked by her explanation, thinking she was busy with school. Sensing that my husband was getting angry and that this could escalate into a fight between siblings, I decided to intervene and keep the peace. "Come on, let's move forward. Now that we've met today, Let's try to get along from here on out, okay, Lisa? I said, hoping to diffuse the tension. She shot me a sharp look. By the way, what do you do for a living? I'm going to be a doctor in the future, so don't get too comfortable with me. I was taken aback by her superior attitude. Had I upset her in some way? Her arrogance was quite overt, and she seemed intent on belittling me. I tried to calm my husband, who was on the verge of raising his voice, and answered her calmly, I'm currently a full-time housewife. I used to be, but my sister-in-law cut me off. A full-time housewife is just another way of saying you're jobless. I can't believe my brother is married to someone like you. Are you just leeching off his money? Her disrespect for full-time housewives was infuriating. My cheek twitched at her condescending remarks. Trying to manage the situation with restraint seemed to have backfired. Lisa, stop. Sarah isn't who you think she is, Daniel protested. It's okay, Daniel, I said, soothing my husband. I knew I had to handle this carefully to avoid a confrontation. I quickly grasped the type of person my sister-in-law was. Although she clearly possessed intelligence, as evidenced by her academic success, her demeanor left much to be desired. Becoming a doctor is a noble pursuit. It's a challenging path, so please keep working hard, I said with a warm smile. Excuse me, she retorted, a jobless person has nothing to teach me. Also, since I'm still a student, I'm not expected to give my brother a wedding gift. Throughout our conversation, her condescending attitude persisted, and it seemed my husband had grown weary of arguing. He waved her away dismissively. Just leave, he said as though shooing her away. She protested, I tried to talk to you, and you're so ungrateful. Fine, whatever, I'm busy too. See you after. After she left, my husband turned to me and apologized, bowing his head deeply. I'm so sorry about my sister. She was incredibly rude. She used to be more considerate, I swear. I reassured him, it's fine. My opinion of my sister-in-law had plummeted, but I knew avoiding conflict between siblings was better than creating a rift. We'll just keep our distance from now on. Thank you for standing up for me. Let's have some tea and change the mood, I suggested, eager to leave the unpleasant encounter behind. How about some delicious coffee? When I smiled, my husband nodded with relief. A few days later, I visited a nearby large hospital, carrying flowers and a change of clothes in a tote bag. I knocked gently on the door of a private room. Mom, it's Sarah. How are you feeling? I asked as I opened the door. My mother greeted me with a happy smile from her hospital bed. I made regular visits to see her, assisting with her daily care and helping her change clothes. Today, she appeared to be doing quite well. My brother Kevin had just taken off the stethoscope and spoke on behalf of our mother. He works as a doctor at the hospital and is keeping a close watch on our mother's condition. Seeing his familiar face, I naturally softened and smiled. Hey, Kevin, it's been a while, I said. Yeah, he replied with a smile as he continued to jot down our mother's progress. I set the tote bag down and took a seat in a round chair next to my mother's bed. Dad was here not too long ago, but he had to leave for a conference. Kevin mentioned, it's too bad we couldn't all catch up while he was here. My mother chuckled at the thought. By the way, this hospital is run by your father. It's a bit surreal to think that I used to work here as a doctor, just like my father and brother. After some enjoyable parent-child conversation, my mother began to doze off, murmuring, I think the medicine I just took is starting to work. I'm getting sleepy. I tucked her in with a blanket, and Kevin and I shared a knowing laugh, thinking she might have felt relieved. Leaving my mother's room, my brother and I found seats on a sofa in the lobby. Are you and Daniel getting along well? He asked me. I nodded, smiling. Yes, we're enjoying our time together. He chuckled and affectionately patted my head. He's always been a worrier when it comes to you, even after you got married. We were all concerned when you left the hospital. Meeting Daniel was the best stroke of luck, I admitted. His presence played a significant role in my recovery. As we continued to chat, a nurse approached my brother and he excused himself. I'll be right back. Just wait for me, he said before disappearing to attend to a patient. Watching him go, I acknowledged that he must be quite busy, being next in line to our father, the hospital director. Just having had the time to chat with him felt like a small miracle. Melancholy washed over me as I sat in a hospital, feeling the absence of my usual role alongside my father and brother. Suddenly, a familiar loud voice pierced the quiet. "What's Jobless Sarah doing here?" My sister-in-law's smirk greeted me as I sat on the sofa. The emphasis she placed on jobless stung, but I maintained my composure with a smile. "Hi, Lisa. I'm here to visit my mother. Since this is a hospital, could you please lower your voice?" I requested politely, hoping to avoid further confrontation. As annoyance began to bubble within me, I found myself faced with an unpleasant encounter. Inwardly groaning at the situation, ignoring my subtle warnings, she continued speaking loudly. "Wait, your mother is in the hospital. I'm here today for my internship," she exclaimed, seemingly surprised. I had suspected as much from her appearance. It wasn't uncommon for her, being a medical student at a nearby university. However, I hadn't anticipated seeing her, and her attire seemed out of place for the setting. Glancing at her flashy makeup and loosely tied hair, I couldn't help but be taken aback. While I understood the time constraints of her studies, I wondered if she grasped the importance of professionalism, something I had prioritized during my time working as a doctor. I wore makeup too, but I prioritized cleanliness and kept it subtle to avoid making patients uncomfortable. I wondered if anyone had spoken to her about it. Looking around, I noticed a few medical students and doctors from the hospital standing behind my sister-in-law, their faces pale with confusion. Many of the doctors at the hospital were my former colleagues, and the medical students seemed to have just learned that I was the daughter of the hospital director. To them, she likely appeared as an audacious medical student being rude to the director's daughter. Concerned that my sister-in-law's loud voice would disturb the hospital's calm, I tried to suggest moving elsewhere. "Lisa, could you please lower your voice? It's bothering people," I said. Lisa interrupted me with an exaggerated sigh, almost as if she was trying to provoke me. "A good-for-nothing daughter snagged a high-income guy at my brother. I bet your mother is relieved. You're probably making him pay for your mother's hospital bills, huh? Just like a trashy mother-daughter duo would," she sneered, making sure everyone around us knew just how she viewed me. Both the doctors and medical students frowned at her disrespect, as did the passing patients. Being publicly humiliated and having my mother insulted pushed me to the edge of my patience. "Hey, you need to stop this." One of the doctors intervened, unable to stand by any longer, but Lisa just laughed carelessly, ignoring him. "She deserves to be told off like this," she said. The doctor who intervened looked at her with a frown and said dismissively, "Your behavior will end your career." Lisa seemed oblivious to the weight of his words. Just then, my brother returned from finishing his errands. He saw the tension between me and my sister-in-law, as well as the uneasy atmosphere around us. He tilted his head, puzzled. "Oh, Kevin," I greeted him. My sister-in-law's attitude shifted dramatically when my brother appeared, and I was taken aback. I never imagined the phrase "playing the hypocrite" would fit so perfectly. She altered her tone of voice and approached my brother, and I couldn't help but notice that even her appearance seemed to have changed. Kevin is young, talented, and undeniably handsome, even from his sister's biased perspective. As the successor to our father, he is incredibly popular, and I instantly sensed that she was aiming her attention at him. "Sarah, did something happen?" she asked, glaring at me as she referred to my brother by his first name. I was dumbfounded as Kevin slowly distanced himself from her and responded, "Well, yeah." Perhaps finding his response less than satisfactory, she persisted, "But you know she's married, right? You didn't know that, did you? You should be careful, Kevin, considering your popularity." Her nasal, whiny voice grated on my nerves, and it was clear she saw me as a rival for my brother's attention. "I mean, she's my sister, after all," Kevin stated, causing her to freeze in surprise. I struggled to hold back laughter at her shocked expression while she stood there dumbfounded. The doctor who had intervened earlier whispered something to Kevin, likely explaining the situation. My brother's expression quickly turned stern. "Wait, so Sarah is the daughter of the hospital director?" he asked, turning to me for confirmation. I nodded, confirming to his bewildered sister-in-law, "Yes, I'm his daughter. I used to work here as a doctor, but I had to quit due to health issues. Now I'm focusing on recovery and temporarily being a full-time housewife, doing my best with housework." My words left her pale. I had heard from my husband that she was hoping to secure a job at this hospital. She must have realized that her insulting words about me and my mother, which had reached my brother's ears, had severely diminished her chances of being hired. Moreover, her dreams of a wealthy marriage seemed to have been dashed as well. I glanced at my brother and felt a pang of bitterness. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath. It seemed that my sister-in-law had never been on his radar. "Though I've heard you're quite talented as a medical student," I began. Upon hearing my words, her shoulders trembled. "Calling someone trashed and mocking them before you've even become a doctor shows a clear problem. If you don't recognize what's wrong, you lack the qualifications to be a doctor. Reflect on your actions." The surrounding audience nodded in agreement. My sister-in-law, who once looked down on me, was being lectured, and even my respected brother seemed disappointed. It was a series of humiliations for her, but I didn't want her to continue down this path. As a doctor, I believe that doctors have a responsibility not only to save lives, but also to empathize with their patients. "I don't understand it all," my sister-in-law said. Unable to bear the atmosphere, she turned abruptly and ran off, ignoring the nurse who scolded her for running in the hospital. In her haste, she tripped and fell dramatically. Kevin and I exchanged glances and chuckled. 6 months later, my sister-in-law, known for her bad attitude, found herself completely isolated after ridiculing me at the hospital. Her pride led her to drink heavily, resulting in a severe injury and subsequent hospitalization. Ironically, she needed medical care and finally seemed to grasp her own arrogance. "I'm so ashamed. I want to apologize to Sarah," her parents said. She now spends her days in regret and reflection. She took a break from medical school and planned to change her ways after her discharge. It would be a challenging road ahead. Meanwhile, I secured a new job as a medical doctor at a pharmaceutical company. My work involves researching and developing drugs and verifying the safety of new medications. Although my father and brother asked if I considered returning to the hospital, I prefer to begin a new chapter elsewhere. My mother's health improved enough for her to receive home care, and she's eagerly anticipating attending my wedding next year.